begin, season totals for most of NFL QBs. They're up on the DK Sportsbook, obviously. We're going to start with breaking down Patrick Mahomes, whose over sits at a whopping 5,050.5 yards, because you don't want to push that, obviously. So 5,050.5 yards, guys. Is Mahomes going to have another 5K yard season? What do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, he absolutely is. Look, here's the thing. Patrick Mahomes needs to, because of the longer season, just average 297 yards a game if he plays 17 games. Even if he doesn't, though, he averaged 316 last season, and he's averaged 318 before in his career. So even if you take that down to 16 games, you're still only looking at 315 yards. I do think that he's gone over that yards per game twice in his career, and I think that he'll do it again here. Just the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, they also had some weird games last season when they tried to lean on the run with Le'Veon Bell and they tried to integrate him. I think that maybe CEH gets more out in passing situations this year. And I just think in general, the Chiefs will just continue to do what they do best, and that's just throw the ball. And also, it doesn't hurt that you get to face the Oakland Raiders twice, and maybe they're going to be the worst defense of football this year. Who knows?
That 297, Kenny, I didn't do the math. Is that on a 5K season or 50-50? Because don't forget, you need those
on 50-51.
All right, good. I'm just making sure. All right, Geoff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not someone who ever advocates taking unders on Patrick Mahomes props, and I'm probably not going to do it here. But let's break this down for a little bit. I mean, Mahomes obviously hit over this mark in his rookie season in 16 games played. Now, last year, he did sit the last game of the year. He only ended up with 4,040 yards. He was probably on pace to either hit this over or be very close through 16 games last year. Now, that's important because the only thing I think you really have to worry about with this prop is, does Patrick Mahomes play 17 games? And again, I'm not going to try and predict injuries, but he sat a game last year because the Chiefs were so far out in front in their division. They didn't need to play him in a game. And could that possibility exist this season? Yeah, it absolutely could, especially with 17 games. The Chiefs may choose to rest him. So keep that in mind when you're targeting these props this year. But I would definitely lean the over here. Kenny laid it out perfectly with his yards per average, what he has to do. I think that Mahomes could hit this in 16 games. So again, I'm not advocating for the under, but there is a possibility that the Chiefs could be so good, so far out in front, that he might not even play 17 games. So I'm still on the over here. All that said, I think he does hit it, especially with the improved O-line.
If you guys ask the makers of Madden, Patrick Mahomes is the baby GOAT, the real GOAT, the greatest of all time. That's Tom Brady. Ageless, guys. He's a Buccaneer, as we know. Just keeps on winning Lombardis. 4,500.5. That is his over-under for yards. 44 years old, though, Moose. What's the expectation?
Man, this one is really tough, if I'm being dead honest. When I first looked at it, I said, this one seems a little bit too high. But you look at what Bruce Arians' offense produces. Carson Palmer in his late 30s, 4,600 yards in 16 games, and he was on pace for a similar type of season in 2016. He only played 15 games that year. Tom Brady, his first season in a Bruce Arians offense, over 4,400 yards, over 4,500 yards, excuse me. Jameis Winston, over 5,000 yards. Bruce Arians offenses throw the ball downfield. They do it smartly. They take high leverage risks that don't necessarily, not high leverage risks, low leverage risks that don't end up resulting in bad turnovers because they act as punts. So there's going to be a lot of throwing down the field, regardless of how good the Tampa Bay defense is. Tom Brady threw for over 340 yards in 5 of his last 7 games last year. And yeah, there's a lot of bad defenses mixed in, but I'm going to take the over here. Again, I think the only thing stopping Brady would probably be him resting in week 17, which again is a possibility, but it's not enough to get me on the under here. I think this total is a little too low. I'd take the over.
Well, let's not forget, too, as we explore all of these questions, you say week 17. Don't forget there's a game 17 this year. 17-game season, 18 weeks. So, it's just that extra game to play with, Kenny, to be able to hit the over for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, no, I think that it definitely makes these numbers a little weird to look at. But when I'm looking at Tom Brady, I think that at 44, I'm not sure I can take an over here when there's so much that can go wrong. Okay, first of all, we saw the Buccaneers fall in love with the run in the postseason. And I think that that's something that can happen again here. I do think that maybe they want to rest Tom Brady a little bit during the season, maybe not sit him on the bench, but they don't want to make him work as hard. and then, maybe ramp him up before the postseason, manage his minutes, so to speak. Look, I just think that, he could even get hurt at this age. I mean, it sounds ridiculous because the guy only really got hurt one time, in New England when he was out for the season. But I do think that it is a risk you're running here if you take the over. And the other thing I will consider too is the Buccaneers defense, a lot of times last season, set Tom Brady up in really short yardage situations. Like they would turn the ball over and the Buccaneers would get the ball at the 35 and Tom Brady would just, waltz his offense into the end zone. I really think that his yardage was inflated by a few big games, throughout the year. But for the majority of the season, he was not like a yard machine. He was not a good fantasy player. So I actually don't think that he hits this over here. And again, there's just so much that can go wrong. Maybe he doesn't have one of those two really big games. Maybe the Buccaneers run the ball more. Maybe they decide to sit Tom Brady the last few games of the season. I don't know what could happen here, but a lot could go wrong. And I'm definitely not investing my money in this.
Kenny, Ryan Tannehill lost some valuable pass catchers, some depth in his offense this offseason, but what he did get was Julio Jones. And we saw last year, even in 9 games, what that guy was capable of. Obviously, a future Hall of Famer and all-time great. We don't know what he's going to do this year, but we need to speculate because Tannehill, with that offense added, 50.5, 4,050 yards, 0.5 is his over-under for this new season. Is Julio Jones going to help him get there?
No, he's not. I love Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is one of my favorite NFL players. I love his story. I love the way he plays football. But, Julio Jones, it's going to sound like a hot take, and it's really not. Like, he obviously is one of the 3 best receivers in football, maybe the best right now. But when you look at the weapons that Ryan Tannehill had last season, Jonnu Smith, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, is this passing offense getting that much better when they lost Corey Davis and they lost Jonnu Smith and then they add Julio Jones? Like, does that to you signify that Ryan Tannehill is going to have like this incredible offensive season, passing the ball anyway? No, I don't think so. And I just think, again, this offense sort of profiles very similarly. You look at, he had 3,800 yards roughly last year in 16 games, maybe add on a 17th game here. I still don't know if it happens. I think that, again, a guy that averages about 238 yards per game now loses, he trades in 2 good weapons for 1 better weapon. I actually think he regresses this year in the passing yard department, and the Tennessee Titans will probably still win 12 games, and it's fine. But for the purposes of this prop, I don't like it.
Moose, where are you at?
This one I really struggled with, if I'm being dead honest. I'm gonna side with Kenny here and just say that I this one would probably be one I just don't even consider it from a betting perspective, but I would probably side with the under here. Again, you've got a team who improved on defense as well. And last year, they weren't a good defense, and they were still top 5 in terms of rush attempts per game. If their defense improves a little bit, it's probably just going to mean a little bit less passing for Tannehill. Now, you look at his career yards per attempts as well. He had that one monster year with almost 10 yards per attempt in 2019. But every other season, it's been well below 8. So does Julio Jones give him enough to pop him back up in the 9 yards per attempt range? If he does, he probably hits the over here. But I'm kind of with Kenny. Like, they lost Jonnu Smith. How much better is Julio Jones at this career than Corey Davis? He's probably still a little better. I mean, I'm definitely not that down on Julio Jones, but I just don't know if it's enough here. And with just the way Tennessee's team is built around Derrick Henry, it's just not really a prop I want to take the over on. So I got a lot of respect for Tannehill. Won't be shocked if I'm wrong on this, but I'll lean under as well.
Guys, 2 questions left and only about a minute and a half to work with. Let's go quick if we're going to get them both in. And losing Julio Jones there in Atlanta, Matt Ryan, he gains Kyle Pitts, has Calvin Ridley, 4,500.5, Geoff. Over or under?
I just don't know how you take the under here. Atlanta's going to have a bad defense, and you just look at Matt Ryan's career statistics. He's basically hit this mark in the majority of the last 8 years with 16 games. Now he's got an extra game, like you said, going into week 18. Kyle Pitts, a good Julio Jones replacement. I'll take the over here. I think the only thing that stops him is just the Falcons are so bad they decide to sit Matt Ryan or something.
Kenny?
Yeah, I had a come to Jesus moment with Matt Ryan this year. I think that he actually is very good. 4,500 yards. He went over it in 16 games. Geoff mentioned now the extra game. Is this receiving core really that much worse? Calvin Ridley just going to get more of the ball. He's really good. I don't even care about. I hated the Kyle Pitts pick. I think it was so stupid. But I mean, he helps here. So good for Matt Ryan. I think he's going to have a monster season. Go to the Hall of Fame.
For his over.
All right, we've got less than a minute. Daniel Jones, passing total 3,800.5 guys. Kenny Golladay is there now. Saquon Barkley coming back. Kenny, where do you stand?
I actually think the Kenny Galladay and Tony hurt him because I think that he's going to try to go for more deep balls. He's going to fall into trouble here. Look, people think that he's going to be the next Josh Allen, Daniel Jones. There's literally nothing similar about them. He's more like Mitch Trubisky, if we're being honest, just doesn't have that same arm, doesn't have that same competitive spirit, doesn't have that same running ability. He's a very just slightly above average quarterback. He could be like Derek Carr, but I don't think that that's going to make him, take this giant leap here. This is a guy that averaged just over 220 yards per game last year. He's going to need a little bit more than that if he wants to get this over, and I just don't think it happens.
Moose, in a word, over or under?
I mean, Jones can run. He just can't stay upright. I'll take the under. I can't do it. Giants are going to run the ball with Saquon.